And what is up, everybody? Okay, if you're wondering why the picture looks so much better, it's because I got a new phone. It wasn't. It wasn't really optional for me, but I got this brand new phone. Looks pretty good. Still getting a little bit used to it. It's a Galaxy S8. Just so you know. That being said, I've been doing a lot of talks on on MMA, especially after the whole telling UFC please bring back the Grand Prix, for this, not just for the sake of doing it, but to at least crown the new light heavyweight champion. And something else started coming up about women's MMA, and I haven't done anything on women's MMA in a long time. So, because for a while, the only thing I was talking about was Ronda Rousey, because that's all there was to women's MMA. Now there's so much more. Thank goodness. I mean, seriously, you have to understand something. I've mentioned how before the face of women's MMA was uh, Gina Carano, and as much as I love Gina Carano, I knew for a fact she was not going to beat Chris Cyborg. And Chris Cyborg, I've said, you know, fights like a dude, but looks like Vanderlei Silva with breasts. And she fought like Vanderlei Silva. She fought like a freaking dude. And then it didn't help that she got her first title defense, where she damn near murders this poor Japanese girl. She tests positive for steroids. That gave women's MMA a black eye. And then when Ronda Rousey's on the scene and everybody's asking Dana White, when are women going to fight in the UFC? When are we going to see women fight in the UFC? Elite XC had women, Strikeforce had women, UFC didn't have women. So, and since Pride was dead, they wanted to know, when are we going to see women fight in the UFC? Since all these other top shows are having it, he said never. And Ronda Rousey said, because he's never seen me fight. Then he saw her fight, and that was it. But then UFC only had one female weight class. And then Invicta pops up. And Invicta's just for women, which was great. An entire promotion just for 145 pounds and under. Okay, fine. And once again, Cyborg became world champion again. And to her credit, she is a phenomenal fighter. Now, like I said, Ronda Rousey fought like a dude. When Ronda Rousey lost to Holly Holm, that wasn't the same it was not the same blow as when Cyborg beat Gina Carano, and then later test positive for steroid. It wasn't the same because Holly Holm, former world boxing champion, Holly Holm already had a female MMA I believe that the Legacy Fighting Championship is a world promotion, internationally recognized as a world promotion. Therefore, it would count under the stupid rules of Guinness World Records, since they won't count Butterbean's achievements as the first boxer to win first athlete to win boxing and mixed martial art world championships, even though he was the first. And what winds up happening with this is, she loses to Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate loses to Amanda Nunez. But then UFC has now strawweight division, and Joanna, however the hell you pronounce her last name, somebody else fights like a dude. Girl fights like a dude. Not bad looking. petite, looks looks like a girl, coming in and just wrecking shop. Okay, great. But then you got Amanda Nunez, who looks like Anderson Silva with breasts. And again, using that long, lanky reach to just keep people at bay, and as she's fighting far inferior, much shorter women. And this last fight, which I didn't see, but but there was a lot of controversy behind it because they feel her opponent got robbed, and then she's gonna say UFC doesn't push me because I'm not blonde. No, that couldn't be any further from the truth. Don't even try to say because it's because you're Brazilian. Don't even try to say it's because you're a lesbian or anything like that. Because if that was the case, why did they push my sister in the core? I forgot her name so hard. Why would they do that? What as hard as they did? I was hoping I was hoping that she would get a rematch with Ronda Rousey, because prior to Ronda Rousey's complete humiliation by Holly Holm, this girl was, my sister in the core, supposedly the first ever open. Her name escapes me, and I know I've mentioned her a couple times before too. That's it's ridiculous. She was the only one that really gave Ronda Rousey a run for her money. Prior to that, and even much after that, was nobody. And I've said how with Ronda Rousey being the face of women's MMA, okay, she's not the face of women's MMA anymore. But now, because there's so many girls, is like women's MMA doesn't need a face anymore. Because now women are starting to be more recognized. So with the 145 pound, the UFC women's featherweight weight class, now Chris Cyborg comes to UFC, had a few fights at bantamweight, but now because there's a 145 pound weight class, and that's where she pretty much initially started off at, now she's the champion at 145 pounds. She totally deserves it. Good on her. I still don't think Ronda Rousey can beat her. No ifs or buts. But at least she has the time to shine, because now, thanks to everything that Ronda Rousey has done for women in the sport, thanks to Ronda Rousey picking up the pieces that Gina Carano let go, and Cyborg had basically just dropped the ball. Everything now, because of Ronda Rousey, you have Joanna. Because of Ronda Rousey, you have Amanda Nunez. Because of Ronda Rousey, Chris Cyborg is a UFC champion, and she really deserves to be one. It had nothing to do with the fact that she was blonde. Everything to do with the fact that she went in there, she put on a hell of a show. Whether she's run a course or not, I don't know. After losing the way she did to Holly Holm, and then of course losing the way she did to Amanda Nunez, and Amanda Nunez, I don't really see the same kind of invincibility that I saw in Ronda Rousey as I did, as I do with Chris Cyborg, as I do with Joanna. Those girls, it was going to be it was going to be ridiculously tough to beat. And Ronda Rousey proved it, that she was tough to beat. Chris Cyborg is tough to beat, because how many years she's been fighting, and she's Strikeforce, Invicta, UFC, hasn't lost a fight yet. It's been well over 10 years since her last loss. It's ridiculous. Joanna, completely undefeated. Maybe somebody with judo, would be able to, get her off of her feet, but her base is too good. Her striking is phenomenal. She just, even though she has, even though she is has that long reach and can outreach a lot of the girls in the, the freaking 120-pound division. And she's 120 pounds and taller than most of these girls that she's fighting. But she doesn't use that to keep them away. She gets in there. She beats them up, bloodies them up. She fights like a dude. That's the biggest difference between these women versus the rest of the women. But the rest of the women are still very good fighters. Miesha Tate, finally, Strikeforce Women's Champion, UFC Women's Champion, retired. Unfortunately, she got nothing. She got nothing left to prove. Okay, so Kat Zingano, as great as she is, and all these other girls, especially in the strawweight division, especially friggin' the karate hottie. Her name escapes me. I don't understand it. Former Invicta atomweight world champion, 110 pounds. And she doesn't fight like a dude by no means, by no stretch of the imagination. What I say that she was invincible. I was shocked when she won the title, and she absolutely deserved it. Will she ever win the UFC strawweight title? Probably not. Will she get a title shot? Most probably. And you know what? Her fights, bringing a lot of attention. A lot of these girls now bring in a lot of attention. So you don't need a face to women's MMA anymore. Before, it was all on Ronda Rousey's shoulders. Now, because you got all these girl fighters and all these new weight classes in UFC and these brand new champions, the women in the sport are going to be able to go a lot further than when it was just Chris Cyborg and just Gina Carano and just Ronda Rousey. But if it wasn't for Ronda Rousey, and mind you, I've said it, I don't like her personally. I thought I think she's a brat. Thought she was a brat. She didn't handle her loss either time very well. And not to mention the fact that I was looking forward to that season where her and Miesha Tate coached. But I'm sorry, you went through it was like you go through the trouble of picking a verbal fight with this girl. You piss yourself off and you walk away crying, blaming them. It's like you were the one that started the fight. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But you cannot deny what she did for women's MMA. For that, I am eternally grateful. Because if not for Ronda Rousey, there would never have been an avenue for more women to showcase what they were capable of. And women in the sport, it's only going to get better from here. Because the floodgates have opened. You can't deny it. Before, it was there was very few places that had women's MMA, very few shows that had women's MMA. And for those few shows, you had to really go out of your way to watch it. It's kind of like trying to watch Pancrase in the United States back in 1995. It was almost impossible. Only time you'd hear about it is after somebody bootlegged the videotape from somebody else that that they watched, and that's when they thought it was all shoot, when they said it was shoot wrestling, or back when they thought that UWFI shoot wrestling was real and Bart Vale was real. That's what it was like in 2007, even with the internet. That's what it was like in 2007 when Gina Carano was the face of women, became the face of women's MMA up until 2009, I believe, when she lost to Chris Cyborg. That's how difficult it was to try to find a show that had women's MMA. and the majority of them didn't even have women's champions. As long as, the entire time that Elite XC was around, no women's champion. Strikeforce had been around for how long before they finally crowned a women's champion? So for everything that the women's MMA is now, it is all because of Ronda Rousey. You cannot deny that. Happy about it. I personally don't care if she ever fights again. And if she does, because they're talking about her getting into the cage with Chris Cyborg, she's going to get trounced. Before, I didn't want it to happen. Now, genuinely doesn't matter. Because Ronda Rousey basically did everything she could do for the sport. I'm not talking about whether or not she could ever win or be world champion again. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being able, she's taken the sport as high as it is now. Now it's now everybody else is just coasting on what she did. And because there's so much more, it doesn't matter if she loses or not. If Chris Cyborg would have beat her before they had the strawweight division, that probably would have, it would be a completely different division entirely. I don't think, seriously, if it was still just the women's bantamweight division and Ronda Rousey fought Chris Cyborg and lost, and Chris Cyborg, was once again the face of women's MMA, and it's a face nobody wants to look at, I can almost guarantee you that pay-per-view sales for women's MMA especially would have dropped significantly. There would have never been a strawweight division. There wouldn't be a featherweight division now. It's just true. And now with Amanda Nunez, with the world being as it is, and having to accept absolutely anything and everything, whatever. It's like seriously, whatever. You fought, you won, you're the champion. Okay, great. Don't try to say you're not being pushed. Don't try to play the victim. You got what? Freaking 30 pounds of gold wrapped around your waist right now. Don't you dare try to play like you're the victim. I'm done talking. You guys have a good night.